The galaxy had not known peace for 300 years. In the darkness of space, massive ships moved like metal gods, each one the size of a small moon. These were the dreadnoughts of the Caltharian Dominion, and they brought only death and terror wherever they traveled. On the bridge of the flagship Eternal Torment, Commander Vex stood with his forearms crossed behind his back. His red eyes watched the viewscreen as the planet Vortani Prime burned below them. The blue and green world that had once been home to 60 million peaceful beings was now nothing more than a ball of fire and ash. "Sir, the orbital bombardment is complete," reported his weapons officer. "All major cities have been destroyed." Vex nodded slowly. The Vortani had made a simple mistake. They had refused to give their children to the Dominion military. Such defiance could not be allowed to exist. "Send a message to all nearby systems," Vex commanded. "Tell them what happens when species refuse our generous offer of protection." The Vortani had been a gentle race. They made beautiful music and grew amazing gardens. Their crime was saying no when the Dominion came asking for their young ones to fill the ranks of their army. Now their music would never play again, and their gardens would never bloom. This was how the Caltharian Dominion ruled. Not through laws or politics, but through absolute fear. Every species in the galaxy knew the simple truth: obey or die. There was no middle ground. "Commander," said his communications officer, her voice trembling slightly, "we have received new orders from High Command." Vex turned his massive form toward her. Even his own crew feared him, which was exactly how he liked it. Fear was the tool that kept order in the universe. "What are our orders?" "There is a new species that has been contacted. They call themselves humans. They come from a system in the outer spiral arm. Intelligence reports suggest they have primitive technology and only one warship." Vex's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile on his alien face. "And they have refused to submit?" "Yes, sir. They have ignored our first contact protocols entirely." This was unusual. Most species surrendered the moment they saw a Dominion dreadnought. The smart ones gave up before the ships even arrived, once they heard the stories from other worlds. "How many worlds do these humans control?" Vex asked. "Only one, sir. A small blue planet they call Earth. Our scouts report a population of about 8 billion, Vex laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 8 billion beings on one world, and they thought they could stand against the might of the Dominion. "It would be amusing if it were not so pathetic," set course for their system. "We will make an example of these humans that will be remembered for 1,000 years." Far across the galaxy, in the cold vacuum near Earth's moon, a very different kind of ship prepared for departure. The human vessel Defiant Dawn was small compared to the Dominion dreadnoughts, barely 800 meters long. But every inch of it had been built with care and hope. Captain Torres stood in the ship's command center, looking at the faces of her crew. 847 souls had volunteered for this mission, knowing they would probably never see home again. "Aria, give me our status report," Torres said to the ship's artificial intelligence. The pleasant female voice of Aria filled the bridge. "All systems are running at optimal efficiency, Captain. However, I must remind you that our chances of survival against a Dominion fleet are extremely low." "How low?" asked Torres. "Based on available data about Dominion firepower and our defensive capabilities, I calculate our survival chances at 0.03%. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's head scientist, looked up from her workstation. "Those are not very good odds, Captain." Torres smiled grimly. "They are better than the odds every other species had when they faced the Dominion. At least we know what we are up against." Chief Engineer Blake wiped his hands on a dirty cloth and joined the conversation. "Captain, I have to tell you again. Most of our new technology has never been tested in real combat. We do not know if it will work when we need it most." "Then we will learn together," Torres replied. "Blake, are the experimental systems ready?" "As ready as they can be, ma'am. The new cloaking device, the micro-jump drives, the quantum shields, they all look good on paper. but paper does not shoot back at you. Lieutenant Parker, the young tactical officer, turned from his station. Captain, I have been studying everything we know about Dominion battle tactics. They rely entirely on overwhelming firepower and fear. They have never faced an enemy that refused to surrender. That gives us one advantage, Torres said. They do not know how to fight a real war. They only know how to destroy helpless victims, Navigator Walsh called out from her position. Captain, we are receiving final orders from Earth Command. The main screen lit up with the face of Admiral Chun, head of Earth's military forces. His expression was grave but determined. Captain Torres, as you prepare to depart, know that all of humanity stands with you. You carry not just our hopes, but the hopes of every enslaved species in the galaxy. The Dominion has ruled through fear for too long. It is time someone showed them that fear works both ways. Torres straightened. Understood, sir. We will not let you down. I know you will not. Remember, your mission is not just to fight. It is to prove that the Dominion can be beaten. Even if you cannot win, you must show the galaxy that these tyrants can bleed. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Each crew member understood the weight of their task. They were not just representing humanity, they were the last hope for countless billions of beings who had lived under Dominion rule. Security Chief Morgan spoke from his station near the back of the bridge. Captain, all weapon systems are loaded and ready. Our Marines are prepared for any situation. Thank you, Morgan. All departments prepare for departure. As the Defiant Dawn began to move away from Earth's moon, Torres looked back at the blue marble that was humanity's home. She wondered if she would ever see it again. Arya, plot a course for the Kepler system. That is where intelligence says, we will meet the Dominion fleet. Course plotted, Captain. Estimated travel time at maximum speed is 6 days. 6 days to prepare for a battle that would decide the fate of not just humanity, but potentially the entire galaxy. 6 days to get ready to face an enemy that had never been defeated. Take us out, Torres commanded. The Defiant Dawn disappeared into the darkness between stars, carrying with it the dreams and fears of 847 brave souls. Behind them, Earth continued its slow rotation, unaware that its children were about to attempt the impossible. Across the galaxy, the Dominion fleet moved toward the same destination. 12 massive dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying entire worlds, commanded by beings who had never known defeat. Soon they would meet in the cold darkness of space, and the galaxy would discover whether hope could triumph over fear, or if the Age of Terror would continue for another 300 years. The Kepler system had been empty for 1,000 years. Once it had been home to a thriving civilization called the Nexari. They had built beautiful crystal cities on 3 different worlds and created art that could make angels weep. Then the Dominion came, and the Nexari learned what happened to species who valued beauty more than military strength. Now, only dead worlds and broken asteroids remained. It was here that 2 very different fleets would meet for the first time. Commander Vex stood on the bridge of the Eternal Torment, watching as his 12 dreadnoughts moved into perfect formation. Each ship was a masterpiece of destruction, covered in weapons that could crack planets and shields that had never been broken. The sight of them together was enough to make entire star systems surrender without a fight. Sir, we are detecting a single vessel approaching from the opposite direction, reported his sensor officer. Vex looked at the tactical display with amusement. 1 ship. 1 tiny ship against his entire battle fleet. The humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. In his experience, there was usually no difference between the two. Show me this human vessel, he commanded. The main screen displayed an image of the Defiant Dawn. It was sleek and white, with strange curves that the Dominion engineers would never use. To Vex, it looked like a toy compared to his massive dreadnoughts. Sir, the human ship is 800 meters long. Our smallest escort vessels are twice that size, laughed his weapons officer. Perhaps they have come to surrender, suggested another crew member. Surely they can see how hopeless their situation is. Vex was not so sure. In 300 years, Of conquest, no species had ever sent a single ship to face a Dominion fleet. Most races sent everything they had, hoping that numbers might somehow save them. The humans were doing something different, and different things made Vex suspicious on the defiant dawn. Captain Torres watched the Dominion fleet appear on her screens. Even though she had seen the intelligence reports, the reality of facing 12 dreadnoughts was overwhelming. Each enemy ship was bigger than most human cities. "Mother of God," whispered Navigator Walsh. "They are enormous." Dr. Vasquez was taking readings with her scientific instruments. "Captain, I am detecting massive energy signatures from each ship. The weapons on just one of those dreadnoughts could destroy our entire moon." "Aria, analysis of enemy fleet composition," Torres requested. 12 Dominion-class dreadnoughts in standard battle formation, the AI replied. "Combined firepower is approximately 47,000 times greater than our maximum output." Chief Engineer Blake shook his head. "Those odds are even worse than we calculated." "Captain, maybe we should consider trying to talk to them first." Torres nodded. She had always planned to attempt diplomacy, even though she knew it would probably fail. "Open a communication channel to the late enemy vessel." Lieutenant Parker worked at his console for a moment. "Channel open, Captain." Torres stood and straightened her uniform. "This is Captain Torres of the Earth vessel Defiant Dawn. I am requesting immediate communication with your fleet commander." The response came quickly. The main screen filled with the image of Commander Vex, his red eyes glowing with cruel intelligence. When he spoke, his voice was like the sound of breaking glass. "I am Commander Vex of the Caltharian Dominion. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Your species will be given the honor of serving the Dominion." Torres kept her voice steady. "Commander Vex, I reject your demand. I am here to offer you a counter-proposal. Withdraw your fleet from human space, and we will consider this meeting a simple misunderstanding." The alien commander stared at her for a long moment, then began to laugh. It was a horrible sound that made several bridge officers step backward. "You think you can negotiate with the Dominion? You bring one small ship against 12 dreadnoughts and believe you have bargaining power?" "I believe in giving everyone a chance to make the right choice," Torres replied calmly. Vex's laughter stopped abruptly. "Then watch what happens to those who make the wrong choice." The communication ended. Immediately, the Dominion flagship began to turn toward 3 large asteroids floating nearby. The Eternal Torment's main weapon, a massive cannon that ran the entire length of the ship, began to glow with deadly energy. "All crew, prepare for demonstration of enemy firepower," Torres announced over the ship's communications system. The Dominion weapon fired once. A beam of pure destruction lanced out and struck the first asteroid. The massive rock, which had been over a kilometer wide, simply vanished. Not destroyed or broken apart, completely gone as if it had never existed, the second shot turned the second asteroid into a cloud of glowing dust. The third shot made the third asteroid disappear as completely as the first. Security Chief Morgan whistled low. "That is enough firepower to destroy our largest cities with a single shot." Dr. Vasquez was studying her readings with growing concern. "Captain, that weapon system is unlike anything in our databases. The energy output is beyond our current understanding of physics." The communication channel opened again. Commander Vex's face appeared on the screen, his expression confident and cruel. "Do you see now, human? This is what happens when the Dominion decides to demonstrate its power. Your entire planet could be destroyed as easily as those asteroids." Torres felt the fear trying to creep into her heart, but she pushed it aside. "Commander, you have impressive weapons. But weapons are not everything. Then what else matters?" Vex demanded. "The will to use them properly," Torres answered. "And the wisdom to know when not to use them at all." Vex's red eyes blazed with anger. "You dare to speak of wisdom to me? I have conquered 1,000 worlds. I have seen civilizations rise and fall at my command. What wisdom can a primitive species like yours possibly offer?" Chief Engineer Blake stepped forward. "Captain, the enemy fleet is powering up all weapon systems. They are preparing for a full attack." Torres nodded but kept her eyes on the screen. Commander Vex, I will give you the same choice you gave me. You have 6 hours to withdraw your fleet and leave human space. After that time, we will consider you a hostile force. The silence on the Dominion bridge was complete. Never, in 3 centuries of conquest, had anyone given the Dominion an ultimatum. The very idea was so impossible that Vex could barely process what he had heard. You are giving me 6 hours? He said slowly. You are giving the Calfarian Dominion 6 hours. That is correct, Torres replied, Vex's face twisted with rage. Human, when those 6 hours end, I will personally oversee the destruction of your ship. Then I will travel to your primitive world and watch it burn. Every single member of your species will die screaming, and it will be because of your arrogance. 6 hours, Commander, Torres repeated calmly. The communication ended. On the Dominion flagship, Vex turned to his crew with fury burning in his eyes. Set countdown for 6 hours. When it reaches 0, we will show this human what it means to defy the Dominion. Alert all ships to prepare for total annihilation of the enemy vessel. On the defiant dawn, Torres looked around at her crew. They were afraid, that was natural. But they were also determined. That was what made them human. All departments, prepare for combat operations. We have 6 hours to get ready for the fight of our lives. As both fleets waited in the cold darkness of space, time began to count down toward a battle that would change the galaxy forever. The 6 hours passed like a countdown to the end of the world. On the bridge of the eternal torment, Commander Vex watched the timer reach 0 with satisfaction. The human ship still floated in space ahead of them, looking small and helpless. Time is up, Vex announced to his fleet. All ships open fire. Destroy the human vessel completely. 12 massive dreadnoughts unleashed their weapons at the same moment. The space around the defiant dawn filled with deadly energy beams, plasma bolts, and explosive missiles. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small moon, all focused. On one tiny human ship, the weapons struck their target with devastating force. Explosions lit up the darkness like a new star being born. The energy release was so intense that the Dominion sensors were temporarily blinded by the light. Target destroyed, reported the weapons officer with confidence. But as the light faded and the sensors cleared, Commander Vex stared at the screen in disbelief. The space where the human ship had been was completely empty, not even debris remained. Where is the wreckage? Vex demanded. Sir, there is no wreckage. The ship has simply vanished. Ships do not vanish. Search all frequencies. Find them. On the bridge of every Dominion vessel, crew members worked frantically at their instruments. But their most advanced sensors could find no trace of the human ship. It was as if the defiant dawn had never existed. This is impossible, muttered Vex's tactical officer. Nothing can disappear from our sensors. Sir, called out the communications officer. We are receiving a transmission, but I cannot locate the source. Put it on screen, Vex ordered. The face of Captain Torres appeared on the display, but her image flickered and shifted as if the signal was coming from multiple locations at once. Commander Vex, she said calmly. Thank you for the demonstration. Now let me show you something about human warfare. The transmission ended, and immediately alarms began blaring throughout the Dominion fleet. The dreadnought Iron Fist reported critical damage to its engine systems. Somehow, something had struck the massive ship without being detected. How is this possible? Vex shouted. What hit the Iron Fist? Before anyone could answer, the Death's Shadow reported similar damage to its weapons array. Then the Void Hammer lost its main shields. One by one, the Dominion ships were being attacked by an enemy they could not see. On the defiant dawn, Lieutenant Parker coordinated the attacks from his tactical station. The ship's experimental cloaking device was working perfectly, bending light and energy around them to make them invisible to enemy sensors. Next target acquired, Parker reported, firing micro-torpedoes at the Starcrusher's communication array. The small, fast-moving weapons struck their target with precision. Unlike the massive weapons the Dominion used, human torpedoes were designed for accuracy, not raw power. They hit exactly where they needed to cause maximum damage with minimum energy. Chief Engineer Blake monitored the ship's systems from his station. Captain, the new micro-jump drives are performing beyond expectations. We can appear anywhere in the battlefield within seconds. Good work, Blake. Arya, analysis of enemy response patterns. The ship's AI replied immediately. Enemy vessels are attempting to use area effect weapons to locate us. However, their coordination is breaking down. They are not accustomed to fighting an enemy they cannot see. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her research station. Captain, I have been studying the Dominion communication patterns during this battle. They are panicking. Their entire battle doctrine is based on overwhelming visible force. Navigator Walsh called out from her position. Captain, we have successfully damaged 8 of the 12 enemy ships. Their formation is starting to break apart. This was exactly what Torres had hoped for. The Dominion fleet was designed to fight enemies who would stand still and trade shots with them. They had no experience dealing with an opponent who refused to fight fair on the Eternal Torment. Commander Vex was learning a hard lesson about human warfare. For 300 years, the Dominion had conquered through fear and massive firepower. They would arrive at a system, show their strength, and watch their enemies surrender. When fighting was necessary, it was always against weaker opponents, who could be crushed quickly. Sir, we have lost contact with the Bone Crusher, reported his communications officer. Their main systems appear to be offline. How can one small ship cause this much damage? Vex demanded. His tactical officer was studying the battle data with growing concern. Commander, the humans are not fighting like any species we have encountered before. They are using hit-and-run tactics, striking our weak points and disappearing before we can respond. All ships spread out and fire in all directions. Saturate the entire area with weapons fire. It was a desperate order from a commander who was running out of options. The Dominion ships began firing wildly into empty space, hoping to hit something they could not see. But the Defiant Dawn was always somewhere else, striking from unexpected angles. Security Chief Morgan coordinated the ship's defensive systems, while the battle raged around them. Captain, the enemy is starting to fire randomly. They are wasting ammunition and energy. That is exactly what we want, Torres replied. A confused enemy makes mistakes. Lieutenant Parker targeted another Dominion ship, firing at the World Ender sensor array. If we can blind them, they will be even more helpless. The attack succeeded perfectly. The massive dreadnought lost its ability to see clearly, making it almost useless in battle. It was like taking the eyes away from a giant. Chief Engineer Blake reported from the engine room. Captain, our power systems are holding steady, but we cannot maintain this pace forever. The cloaking device uses enormous amounts of energy. How much longer can we stay hidden? Torres asked. Maybe 2 more hours at maximum power. After that, we will need to recharge or risk complete system failure. Dr. Vasquez had been monitoring the Dominion fleet communications. Captain, I am detecting increased panic in their transmissions. Several ships are requesting permission to withdraw. Permission that Commander Vex will never give, Torres observed. The Dominion rules through fear. If his ships retreat from one human vessel, their entire empire could collapse. Navigator Walsh plotted their next attack run. Captain, we have successfully disabled or damaged 10 of the 12 enemy ships. Only the flagship and 1 escort remain at full combat strength. Torres studied the tactical display. The Dominion fleet, which had seemed so powerful just hours ago, was now scattered and confused. Ships that had conquered worlds were being defeated by an opponent they could barely comprehend. Parker, target the escort vessel. Leave the flagship for last. Yes, ma'am. Firing at the Night Terror's engine systems. The attack was successful. The escort ship lost power and began drifting helplessly in space. Now only Commander Vex's flagship remained as an effective fighting force on the Eternal Torment. Vex stared at the tactical display in horror. His entire fleet had been crippled by one small human ship. It was impossible, but it was happening. Sir, said his weapons officer quietly, Perhaps we should consider withdrawing and requesting reinforcements. Vex turned on him with fury. We do not retreat. We are the Keltharian Dominion. We have never been defeated. But even as he spoke the words, Vex knew that everything had changed. The humans had shown the galaxy something that had been forgotten for 3 centuries. The Dominion could be beaten. Across the galaxy, something impossible was happening. The news traveled at the speed of quantum communication, jumping from system to system faster than the fastest ships. On 1,000 enslaved worlds, beings who had lived in fear for centuries heard the same unbelievable message. A single human ship was fighting the Dominion fleet and winning. On the mining world of Taraxis 7, slave workers deep underground stopped their drilling when the message reached them. The Gralian overseer who had beaten them for 30 years found himself facing a crowd of workers who no longer looked afraid. "Back to work, slaves!" the overseer shouted, raising his shock whip. But for the first time in decades, no one moved. An old Taraxian miner stepped forward. His back was bent from years of hard labor, but his eyes were bright with something that had been missing for too long: hope. "The humans are fighting them," he said quietly. "Someone is finally fighting them." On the crystal world of Nexus Prime, the beautiful Crystry people gathered in their broken cities to whisper about the news. Their race had once created the most amazing art in the galaxy before the Dominion came and enslaved them to mine their own sacred crystals. "Is it true?" asked a young Crystry female. "Can the Dominion really be defeated?" Her elder touched her glowing face gently. "Child, if one ship can stand against them, then perhaps we all can." In the command center of Dominion High Command, the news was causing panic among the highest leaders of the Empire. General Korth, Supreme Commander of all Dominion forces, stared at the reports with disbelief. "How is this possible?" he demanded from his subordinates. "Commander Vex has 12 dreadnoughts. The humans have 1 small ship." "Sir," replied his intelligence officer, "our communications with the fleet are becoming irregular. It appears that most of Commander Vex's ships have been damaged or disabled." General Korth slammed his massive fist on the table. "This cannot be allowed to continue. If word spreads that the Dominion can be defeated, we will face rebellions. On every world we control. What are your orders, sir?" "Send every available ship to the Kepler system. I want 50 dreadnoughts there within 3 days. This human threat must be destroyed completely." But 3 days might be too long. Already, the impossible news was creating cracks in the foundation of the Dominion Empire. On the Defiant Dawn, Security Chief Morgan was intercepting Dominion communications from across the galaxy. What he found was both encouraging and terrifying. "Captain," he reported to Torres, "I am picking up massive communication traffic throughout Dominion space. The news of our battle is spreading everywhere." "What kind of reactions are we seeing?" Torres asked. "Mixed, ma'am. Some worlds are starting to show signs of unrest. But I am also detecting military movements. The Dominion is sending reinforcements." Dr. Vasquez looked up from her analysis of captured Dominion data. "Captain, I have discovered something important about our enemy. Their entire military structure is based on psychological warfare, not actual combat experience." "Explain," Torres said. "For 300 years, the Dominion has conquered through fear. They arrive with overwhelming force, demonstrate their power, and most species surrender immediately. When they do fight, it is always against much weaker opponents who cannot resist effectively." Chief Engineer Blake joined the conversation. "So they have never actually fought a real war?" "Exactly," Dr. Vasquez confirmed. "They are bullies, not warriors. Their tactics are centuries out of date because they have never needed to adapt or improve." Lieutenant Parker was monitoring the enemy fleet. "Captain, the Dominion ships are trying to regroup, but their coordination is terrible. They keep getting in each other's way." Navigator Walsh added her observations. "Their formation tactics are designed for intimidation, not actual combat effectiveness. When we disrupted their command structure, they did not know how to adapt." Torres studied the tactical display. The once mighty Dominion fleet was scattered across the battlefield like broken toys. Most of the ships were still functional, but they were no longer fighting as a coordinated force. "Aria, analysis of enemy psychological state," Torres requested. "Based on communication intercepts and tactical behavior, the enemy fleet is experiencing severe morale problems," the AI responded. "Commander Vex is losing control of his subordinates." On the bridge of the Eternal Torment, this analysis was proving accurate. Commander Vex was indeed losing control as his officers began to question orders that seemed increasingly desperate. "Sir," said his tactical officer carefully, "perhaps we should consider a strategic withdrawal. We could return with more ships and a better plan." Vex turned on him with rage. "We do not withdraw. The Dominion has never retreated from any battle." "But, sir, we have lost most of our fleet effectiveness. Staying here serves no purpose." "It serves the purpose of maintaining Dominion honor," Vex screamed. "If we run from one human ship, every slave race in the galaxy will think they can resist us." His weapons officer spoke up hesitantly. "Commander, we are receiving reports of unrest on several worlds. The slaves are becoming difficult to control." This news hit Vex like a physical blow. The foundation of Dominion power was the absolute belief that resistance was hopeless. If that belief was shattered, the entire empire could collapse. "All ships, prepare for ramming attack," Vex ordered desperately. "We will destroy the human ship even if we have to crash into it." His bridge crew stared at him in shock. A ramming attack meant certain death for everyone involved. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "the other ships are not responding to the ramming order." For the first time in his career, Commander Vex's subordinates were refusing to obey him. The fear that had held his fleet together was breaking down. On the defiant dawn, Torres could see the enemy fleet's coordination continuing to fall apart. But she also knew that their victory was creating a new problem. "Morgan, what is the status of those Dominion reinforcements?" she asked. "Long-range sensors are detecting multiple fleets moving toward our position. At least 40 more dreadnoughts, maybe 50. Chief Engineer Blake shook his head. "Captain, we cannot fight 50 fresh ships. Our systems are already pushed to the limit." Torres knew he was right. They had proven that the Dominion could be beaten, but they could not defeat the entire empire. With one ship. "Dr. Vasquez, you said the Dominion rules through psychological warfare. What would be the most psychologically devastating thing we could do to them?" The scientist thought for a moment. "We would need to destroy their most important symbol of power. Something that would be visible across the entire galaxy." Lieutenant Parker looked up from his station. "Captain, I have an idea." "The Eternal Torment is not just Commander Vex's flagship. It is the symbol of Dominion might. Every conquered species knows that ship. If we could destroy it," Navigator Walsh added, "the psychological impact would be enormous." Torres studied the tactical display. The enemy flagship was still powerful, still dangerous, but it was also alone, separated from its escorts by the chaos of battle. "Parker, can we get close enough to that flagship for a direct assault?" "It will be extremely dangerous, Captain." "But yes, I think we can do it." Torres made her decision. They had come here to prove the Dominion could be beaten. Now, they had the chance to prove it in a way that the entire galaxy would never forget. "All hands, prepare for direct assault on the enemy flagship. This is what we came here to do." The Defiant Dawn dropped its cloaking device and appeared directly in front of the massive Dominion flagship. For the first time in the battle, the human ship was completely visible to its enemies. Captain Torres wanted Commander Vex to see exactly who was about to destroy his symbol of terror. "All weapons, target the Eternal Torment," Torres commanded. "Parker, give them everything we have." The human ship unleashed its full arsenal. Energy beams, plasma cannons, and quantum torpedoes struck the Dominion flagship from every angle. But the Eternal Torment was the most heavily armored ship in the galaxy, and it absorbed the punishment while returning fire with weapons that could crack planets. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Chief Engineer Blake. "We are taking heavy damage, Captain." The bridge shook as another massive energy beam struck their shields. Warning lights flashed red as systems began to fail under the incredible strain. "Aria, status report," Torres called out. "Shield strength at 30% and falling rapidly," the AI responded. "Hull integrity compromised in multiple sections. We cannot sustain this level of damage much longer." Dr. Vasquez was thrown from her station as another impact rocked the ship. "Captain, their weapons are too powerful. We cannot win a direct fight." Torres knew she was right. The Defiant Dawn had succeeded through stealth and surprise, but in a straight battle, the Dominion flagship was simply too strong. "Morgan, prepare the boarding teams," Torres ordered. "If we cannot destroy this ship from outside, we will have to do it from within." Security Chief Morgan nodded grimly. "Sergeant Rodriguez and his Marines are already suited up and ready. Blake, can you get us close enough to dock with their ship?" The chief engineer wiped blood from a cut on his forehead. "I can try, Captain, but our engines are damaged. We might not have enough power for docking procedures. Do your best. Parker, cover the boarding operation with everything we have left." The damaged human ship moved closer to the enormous Dominion flagship. It was like a small fish swimming toward a giant shark, but the fish had teeth of its own on the bridge of the eternal torment. Commander Vex watched the human ship approach with a mixture of rage and disbelief. His mighty fleet had been destroyed by this one small vessel, and now they dared to come close enough to board his flagship. "Sir, the human ship is attempting to dock with our hull," reported his tactical officer. "Let them come," Vex snarled. "When they board my ship, I will kill them all personally. Ready the security teams." But as the human ship attached itself to the Dominion flagship, Vex made a decision that would haunt his final moments. He activated the ship's self-destruct system. "Sir, what are you doing?" His communications officer asked in horror. "If I cannot defeat these humans, then I will take them with me when I die," Vex replied. "The self-destruct will activate in 10 minutes. That is enough time to kill the boarding party and die with honor." His bridge crew stared at him in shock. The self-destruct would kill everyone on both ships, including thousands of Dominion crew members. "Commander, please reconsider," pleaded his weapons officer. "Our people do not deserve to die for your pride. They deserve to die as warriors." "Of the Dominion," Vex screamed. "Better death than the shame of defeat." Meanwhile, Sergeant Rodriguez and his team of 20 human Marines had successfully breached the Dominion ship's hull. They moved through corridors that were built for beings much larger than humans, using their smaller size to their advantage. "Rodriguez to Captain Torres," the sergeant reported over his radio. "We are inside the enemy ship, moving toward their main reactor. Be careful, Sergeant. We are detecting massive internal security forces moving toward your position." The human Marines encountered their first group of Dominion soldiers at a junction between two corridors. The aliens were twice the size of humans and carried energy weapons that could punch through steel. But the Marines had something the Dominion troops lacked: experience fighting against superior numbers. "Grenades!" Rodriguez shouted, and his team threw small explosive devices that filled the corridor with smoke and confusion. In the chaos, the humans used their superior mobility to outflank the larger aliens. The battle was fierce but brief. The Dominion soldiers were used to fighting terrified slaves, not trained warriors who fought back with skill and determination. "Corridor secured," Rodriguez reported, continuing toward the reactor. But as they moved deeper into the ship, the self-destruct announcement echoed through the corridors in the Dominion language. "Sir, we have a problem," called out one of Rodriguez's Marines. "The ship's computer is counting down from 10 minutes. Rodriguez cursed under his breath. They had come so far, only to face the possibility that their enemy would destroy them, all rather than accept defeat. "Torres to Rodriguez," came the captain's voice over the radio. "We are detecting the self-destruct sequence. You need to get out of there immediately." "Negative, Captain. We are too close to the reactor. If we can overload it properly, the explosion will be visible from nearby star systems. The entire galaxy will see the Dominion flagship destroyed." On the bridge of the Defiant Dawn, Torres faced an impossible choice. She could order the boarding party to retreat and try to escape before the self-destruct activated. But if they left now, Commander Vex would survive, and the psychological impact of their victory would be reduced. "Rodriguez, you do not have to do this," Torres said quietly. "Yes, ma'am, we do. This is what we came here for. Make sure people remember why we died." Chief Engineer Blake was working frantically to separate the two ships. "Captain, I can detach U.S. from the Dominion ship, but we need at least 5 minutes to get far enough away to survive the explosion." "Do it," Torres ordered. "Blake, get us clear. Arya, record everything. I want the galaxy to see what happens when someone finally stands up to the Dominion." Deep inside the eternal torment, Sergeant Rodriguez and his team reached the main reactor. The massive chamber was filled with energy that could power a small city. If they could overload it, the explosion would be spectacular. "Sir, we have company," reported one of his Marines. Commander Vex himself had arrived with his personal guard, determined to stop the humans personally. "So, the famous human warriors," Vex snarled, his forearms holding different weapons. "You think you can destroy my ship?" "We do not think it," Rodriguez replied, attaching explosive charges to the reactor controls. "We know it." The final battle was brutal and desperate. The human Marines fought with everything they had, knowing that their sacrifice would echo across the galaxy. One by one, they fell to the superior numbers and firepower of the Dominion guards, but they had done enough. The reactor was overloading, and nothing could stop it now. As the Defiant Dawn limped away from the Dominion flagship, the eternal torment erupted in an explosion that could be seen from dozens of star systems. The ship that had been the symbol of Dominion power for 3 centuries was gone, along with the commander who had never known defeat. Captain Torres, wounded but alive, watched the explosion from her command chair. Around her, the bridge crew stared in stunned silence at what they had accomplished. "Arya, transmit our battle records to Earth and to every star system in the galaxy," Torres ordered. "Let everyone know that the age of Dominion terror is over."